Hurricane Zeta is strengthening and headed for the Yucatan Peninsula. Good afternoon, I'm Mike Nasa with the latest on the tropics. You can see the full picture of the Atlantic. We had Hurricane Epsilon, which moved out to sea as a Category 1, and it almost got up there above 115 miles per hour. It was a major hurricane. Thankfully, it remained far enough to the east of Bermuda. But this is Hurricane Zeta strengthening this afternoon. The Air Force recon's been flying out there, determined that it has gone from a tropical storm into a Category 1 hurricane. Here's the latest as of 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern from the National Hurricane Center. Hurricane Zeta was at 19.5 north, 86.0 west, winds of 80, with the pressure down near 981 millibars. It is a low to mid-range Category 1, forecast to strengthen a little bit more before it makes landfall over the Yucatan sometime tonight. It's about 90 miles offshore the Yucatan Peninsula as of 5 p.m., and it is moving northwest at 10. That should bring the center inland as a hurricane, and it should remain a hurricane until very near or over the Louisiana coastline sometime late Wednesday night, maybe early Thursday. Again, we do have a hurricane warning from Tulum to Dzilam, Mexico, including the island of Cozumel, same area hit by Delta a few weeks ago. And we also have a tropical storm warning south of Tulum to Punta, Mexico, and west to Progreso, Mexico, along the Yucatan Peninsula. However, we now have a hurricane watch. We've mentioned these cities a lot this year, from Morgan City, Louisiana, to the Mississippi-Alabama border, including Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and Metropolitan, downtown New Orleans, because this storm is expected to be at or near hurricane strength by Thursday morning as it zooms into the Gulf Coast, and then eventually it gets caught up in the trough and will move offshore by Friday. We won't have to deal with it. Hopefully, your Halloween plans, if you have any, will not be ruined down there in the southern U.S., except along the Gulf Coast if we have any damage from what is expected to bring a hefty amount of rain and surge. You can see the wind field right now is not that large. It's growing in size, but it definitely dawdled around down there stationary yesterday and has now begun a very pronounced movement there towards the northwest, south of a ridge of high pressure, and then it'll eventually feel the effects of that trough, that winter storm moving through Texas. You hear about that on the news? That's that troughiness. So you have a hurricane in the Gulf, a winter storm over the south. That translates into nasty weather, number one, and number two, a hurricane that's going to have unfavorable conditions and be soaring northeast. So unlike Hurricane Sally back in September, it won't be a slow movement there on the Gulf Coast. However, it'll still lash you pretty nasty. You can see the satellite imagery there, the visible. This is a very well-organized Category 1 hurricane. The center is right where that deep convection's firing. We do have some banding features that the Air Force was pointing out. No sign of an eye on satellite yet. It's still a little bit restricted, so it kind of has that thumb shape to it. However, it is definitely a hurricane based on the Air Force readings, and the center looks to be right on track for the island of Cozumel, maybe a little bit south, the Hurricane Center thinks, and that should bring it over the northeastern tip of the Yucatan. Remember Delta? Delta weakened from about 110 miles an hour to 75, 80, so we should see some weakening, but nevertheless it should be in the Gulf as a hurricane, and that's a problem. Here's the GFS ensembles. You can see Louisiana, the writings on the wall on this model. Some keep it a tropical storm, some bring it in as a Category 1. Same thing here with the Euro. You can see most of them are pretty tight over areas of Grand Isle, Homa, and that region. And then to say nothing of areas of Mississippi, there's a possibility, remember, it could make landfall in Louisiana and then move back out and make another landfall in Mississippi or Alabama. So again, even if you're on the Florida Panhandle on the right side of the storm, you could have water rises. I don't have those storm surge maps yet, but believe me, you've seen them a lot this year. We will have those in the next coming days as we deal with the hurricane. There's the flash flood threat. You can see it's getting into the yellow here in areas of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Again, the one good news is that the hurricane should be accelerating off in this direction, off the southeast coast. So pretty much south of the Tennessee Valley would be the most impact. And again, if it moves fast enough, you won't see much in the way of slow movement flooding, with a system that just sits there and spins like Hurricane Sally did. However, it'd still be a hurricane, and you saw the water rise with Delta in southwestern Louisiana just days ago. Here's the shear map. You can see the very low wind shear of blue right over the top of it, but look at just to its north, much less favorable conditions, especially as it interacts with a front moving down and it starts to turn. That should impart shear on it. And you can see we have the sea surface temperatures, very hot water. That's what's allowing it to become a hurricane and even a stronger hurricane before landfall tonight. They're still hot enough for a hurricane in the Gulf, but look, they get cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler as you get close to the coast, and that is unfavorable for a strong hurricane, so that is good news. Nevertheless, the key messages: number one, hurricane conditions and dangerous surge expected in the Yucatan tonight, this evening, through early Tuesday, and through Tuesday, heavy rainfall for the Yucatan, the Cayman Islands, as well as central and western Cuba, and that could lead to flash flooding in urban areas. Number two, hurricane conditions and life-threatening storm surge are possible along portions of the Gulf Coast on Wednesday, and we do have those storm surge and hurricane watches in effect. Residents in the watch area should follow any advice given by local officials. Also, between Tuesday night and Thursday, heavy rain for the Gulf Coast all the way into the southern Appalachians and mid-Atlantic in advance of Zeta, and that could lead to flash, urban, small stream, and minor river flooding. I did want to note we do have this map now. You've seen this map through all the hurricanes: Hannah, Isaias, Laura, Marco, what other ones? Sally, Delta. Obviously, the water rise on the North Gulf Coast. This area is susceptible from Yankeetown in the Panhandle all the way to Intercoastal City. You guys will see likely water rises. The highest right now, Lake Borgne, this area of the Mississippi Delta, 4 to 6 feet, 2 to 4 in Mobile Bay and Pensacola Bay. So again, craft, small craft, and people on the coast, be prepared for those onshore flows and those water rises as this storm moves closer. So that'll do it this afternoon for Hurricane Zeta, a strengthening Category 1 hurricane. It will make landfall over the Yucatan Peninsula later tonight and cause a wallop of nastiness there, move into the Gulf, and as this trough develops and brings wintry weather to the south, it will pick up our hurricane and slam it into the Gulf Coast. And if it makes landfall as a hurricane, it'll be the 6th hurricane to hit the United States this year. It will likely be at or near hurricane intensity at landfall. I'm Mike Nasel with the latest on Hurricane Zeta, and I will talk to you guys next time as the storm approaches the Gulf Coast.